Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we are going to go into the Mortal Realms. You see, Realms of Ruin is releasing on the 17th of November, and I did get a lot of questions regarding the lore, the factions, and just a lot of things to do with Age of Sigmar. Naturally, we've covered some Age of Sigmar in the past, but I feel like it's time to now start covering a little bit more. So today what I want to do is go into a fairly brief introduction around the Stormcast Eternals, and if you do like the video, let me know. Obviously comments and likes do help the channel grow a little bit more, and we'll dive more into Age of Sigmar. It's that simple, right? So with all that being said, let's look towards the Stormcast Eternals and what makes them tick mentally, emotionally, and physically. Of all the forces in Age of Sigmar, it is the Stormcast Eternals that serve as the ambassadors to the setting, taking center stage in every edition's launch as the prime defenders of the forces of order, the Chosen of Sigmar, and the Hammer of Justice. But who exactly are the Stormcast Eternals? What is their purpose? Today we will familiarize ourselves with these larger-than-life warriors. For context, all of the lore and even direct quotes in this video can be found in their most recent Battletome, and this video is, again, made to serve as an introduction to a faction, not a complete breakdown. To understand the Stormcast Eternals, one must understand their creator, Sigmar Heldenhammer, the God King, a mortal man turned god during the age of the world that was, who blessed mighty pious warriors against the forces of chaos, destruction, and undeath. As we are all fully aware, the world that was suffered a cataclysmic event which saw the forces of chaos sweep over the land and destroy the very fabric of being. To many that was the end, but not all had perished when the chaos gods took over, a story we have heard has repeated over from the eons. After the end times, Sigmar had been spared the peace of oblivion as he was thrust into the etheric void with the very core of the world that was, malice, acting as a comet to travel into the metaphysical. The time frame that he travelled for is irrelevant, for even the God King himself does not know. But upon attracting the attention of Dracothian, one of the immense zodiacal god beasts known as the Great Drake, he was saved. Rescuing the God King from his unhappy fate, Dracothian was swift to show him the majesty of the mortal realms. Sigmar was awed as he travelled across these new realities, each breathtaking sight and wondrous discovery dulling, if not erasing, the pain of his lost world. This was the start of the era known as the Age of Myth, where Sigmar travelled across the mortal realms, bringing order to this strange new existence. He slew vicious god beasts, found other deities from his past world, forming a mighty pantheon, and united many tribes of peoples under one banner, known as the Pantheon of Order. Through these actions, a golden age began. Civilizations from across the realms worked together in harmony, raising wondrous works of art and architecture that they believed would endure for millennia. Sigmar watched all this with pride, daring to hope that this second chance of glory would last forever. But if it did, then this would be the end of the story, however, as things are never that simple. The Pantheon broke and splintered for a multitude of reasons. Some of the deities wished to protect their own people better by maybe excluding themselves and going to different directions. Others, extremely self-serving, and naturally with some gods, they only sought to work with the Pantheon until their usefulness was exhausted. The realms were plunged into darkness and the powers of chaos made themselves known once again. Everything that Sigmar had worked for had begun to crumble, reliving the traumatic past anew. But Sigmar would not falter as the realms became engulfed in war. He would gather allies that remained and the mortals that still fought under the name of Order, taking them to the realm of Azir and sealing the gates to the other realms so that they may prepare themselves for the wars to come. Sigmar knew that their current strength alone was not enough to take on the forces of chaos, to break their hold on the other realms. For that, he would need a grand new army, warriors built to withstand the coming hordes. Alongside the Dwarden smith god Grungi and the great Drake Dracothian, Sigmar set about creating this new army, forged by the might of the gods themselves, that may one day reclaim the realms. Sigmar kept watch for those men and women who resisted chaos to the last. The worthiest were snatched from the precipice of death in bolts of lightning and carried to Azir, willingly or otherwise. It is important to note here that there were possibly tribes who had not fallen under Sigmar's sway and might have even fought against him, but the strongest there would serve in the coming wars. There would also be many that would have not wished to be part of the process that is to come, instead wishing for the sweet release of oblivion after dying for their cause. But nonetheless, these brave souls would be carried to Azir so that they could be tested through the agonies of reforging. This mystical process was, and still is, trying indeed. Many have proved unable to pass the hallowed currents of tempering, or withstand being blasted apart and remade upon the anvil of apotheosis. Yet those who endured were empowered in the aftermath. Steadily, the number of such champions grew to the hundreds and then the thousands. It's important to note that this process, known as reforging, again is not for everyone. Where hundreds of thousands of people can be tested, very few of them will actually become Stormcast. You need a tremendous amount of will, mental and physical strength to eventually be reshaped into what is to come. Each Stormcast is granted the might of 12 men and trained extensively in the arts of battle. For his army, Sigmar chose not only peerless swordsmen and fiery warrior monarchs, but also bellicose preachers, resolute physicians, and even wild-eyed hermits whose hearts were filled with defiance. This army was not meant to simply serve as the hammer of Sigmar, but in fact be a mighty legion, an extension of his will to which needs to serve every purpose on the battlefield, which is why you may see more and more varied forces known as storm hosts. Their purpose is to serve as the God King's chosen champions. Most importantly, the Stormcast title of Eternal was no ideal boast. Upon death, their weapons, armor, and flesh would discorporate in a burst of force, their souls returning to Azir so that, through the artifice of Sigmar and Grungi's demigod servants, the Six Smiths, they could be reforged, made whole again, and returned to the fray. In this way, Sigmar intended his Stormcast to become a relentless, immortal force in the fight against chaos, inspiring hope in the downtrodden people of the realms. Here it could be noted that as the Stormcast Eternals became fairly more active with time, many more independent nations, and very likely those very much in danger by the forces of chaos, might be drawn to the forces of order, and could in fact also draw Sigmar's attention to any warriors he may have not spotted before, or those who had not been born during the coming of chaos. Thus, he might find more warriors to further his plans, and leads towards whole new storm hosts being created, with his legions ever swelling as new threats rise within the mortal realms. Once again, these potential warriors may be willing, but others may not be as much, as they learn of not only the process of reforging, but the horror that was to come. In time, the immortality of the Stormcast Eternals has proved to be as much of a curse as it is a gift. Their existence has become a cycle of hellish carnage and violent demise. Over and over, they fight and they fall, selling their lives in defense of Sigmar's empire, even as the weight of their repeated deaths presses upon them. Though few speak of it, reforging carries a terrible flaw, a glitch that sees a Stormcast soul and mind flaking away each time they are remade in body. With every rebirth, a Stormcast loses more of their memories and emotions, while their attitudes towards dissent, even of the most minor kind, grow more uncompromising. As these Stormforged warriors become more and more akin to living weapons, unburdened by complex morality or connection to their mortal lives, one must wonder whether Sigmar's people have as much fear from their protectors as their enemies. It's with this you can clearly see why some are not as willing to accept the process of reforging, and some, even very quietly I may add, question Sigmar's very intention. Who is he to decide who will meet oblivion in death, and who becomes reforged only to serve eternally and lose themselves with every reforging? Surely that is a punishment worse than death itself. That is not to say that Sigmar does not ponder the flaw in the reforging process. In truth, the God King has tried to correct this rather ghastly issue, but as the tides of war become an even greater threat, there was a realization that perhaps there were more important matters at hand, and should a fix ever come, it would not be today, nor for a long time. The mighty storm hosts were to be sent out to war almost as quickly as they were forged. The forces of chaos were met with faith and hammer as the armies of the God King marched throughout the realms, securing territory for the eventual construction of grand bastions of hope. And while many fortresses that were founded did not stand due to the ever-present forces of chaos, death, and destruction throughout the realms, others did, and held true for many years. Over the years, the Stormcast Eternals saw a change to their original intentions. This new age cast the Stormcasts as not only warriors, but preservers, the hammer and shield of civilization. First, they had been charged with demolishing the hordes of chaos in mighty hammer blow assaults, but now their Stormkeep stood among the urban sprawl of Sigmar's people, and the walls of the free cities were defended by mortal and immortal alike. Many Stormcast took to their new roles well as custodians of virtue. Others naturally did not. Those who did, such as the Tempest Lords or Hammers of Sigmar, stood alongside the mortals as not only allies, but comrades, all with the same purpose: to survive in a universe beset by war, because if they were to fall together. Though there were some whose uncompromising nature were exacerbated and clashed with their duties as wardens of Sigmar's new empire, especially as the cults of chaos, the ghosts of undeath, and the murk of destruction loomed even within their cities. Many of the Stormcast Eternals who garrisoned the free cities had perished twice, thrice, or more during multiple bloody wars throughout the mortal realms, their humanity having been chipped away until they became avatars of their God King's merciless justice. If Sigmar entertained secret hopes that time spent amongst the people would help them rehabilitate these damaged souls, he was mistaken, as riots, skirmishes, and dare I say chaos-led rebellions happened within the free cities, and efforts were made to restore order. Many Stormcast Eternals overreached. In VIKRAM, for example, the Celestial Vindicators butchered 3/4 of the city in a single night, searching for any who held hatred in their hearts. That such purges were by far exception, not the rule, did not prevent them from becoming a collective on the Stormcast's honor. If there were even slight suspicion of corruption, then naturally it had to be destroyed, lest the city fall and more damage could be done as a whole. Yet it's still important to note that the Stormcast Eternals, many of them, at least those who have not been reforged once too many, do remember their past lives, their former jobs, wives, and children. They're not completely incapable of compassion and joy. In fact, it was and still is Sigmar's hope that one day the reforging process may be perfected so that their very being is not lost. But until then, it is perfectly understandable that even some of the staunchest Stormcast fear falling to the blade one too many times. They are completely aware of what is happening to them, and the more it happens, the more they're aware of it. It becomes a sort of fear for them. Despite their appearance, their strength, and their power, they are still somewhat human, and the burden of emotion might be the only semblance of free will that remains with the Stormcast Eternals. Though he gave them great powers of heroes, Sigmar was intended for his Stormcast to be more than just a blunt instrument. To simply shatter the grip of chaos was not enough. The lands defiled by the dark gods was to be seized, purified, and made home to civilization once more. The seeds of the modern Dawnbringer Crusades have been planted as far back as the Realmgate Wars, a period now immortalized in myth among the Sigmarite nations, and the Stormkeeps formed the bedrock of Sigmar's strategy for reconquest. But that is a story for another day. I want to do these in shorter form lore videos, so it doesn't get overwhelmed. That, and the fact of the matter is, I like the idea of going in through individualized topics. So here was the creation of the Stormcast and their basic psychology. Stuff that really isn't discussed too much when you see a lot of people discussing the Stormcast Eternals. A lot of it is this whole holier-than-thou, resplendent type of situation where it's actually fairly dark, and I think that's what makes Warhammer much more like Warhammer, and it separates it from other fantasy settings. It's very easy to say Sigmarine, 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 but if you miss out a lot of the really important stuff, or at least what I think is the foundation of their faction, then yeah, they're just going to look like Space Marines in a fantasy setting. But if you do like this video, please do comment, do leave a like. It's something that is quite important to make the channel survive, and also it helps me gauge if you guys like these types of videos, because I do want to cover a little bit of more Age of Sigmar stuff. I did promise this a while back, and I think now is the time alongside Realms of Ruin. Next, we'll either go into some Stormkeep stuff or maybe some Uruk Kruleboys. I'll let you guys decide the next topic, and we'll just go from there. So yeah, have a good day, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon.